Tonight we are studying Parashat Korach, and Parashat Korach is one of those very, very odd parashas because it seems like on one way Moshe Rabbeinu is on the defense. Korach comes and he starts attacking Moshe and Aharon and El Tzafan. I'm going to explain exactly what his issues were. And it seems like Moses is always on the defense. He keeps on, if you read this week's parasha, which I encourage everyone to, Korach is, Moshe Rabbeinu is just always falling on his face, praying to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, asking Hashem, no, please don't punish, please don't punish. And then all of a sudden, no, punish them because they're deserving of it. And it's not too long of a Torah portion, but it's definitely an action-packed one. And there's one, so before I get into what the Zera Shimshon shares with us, I want to give us maybe a brief synopsis. And that is that Korach, as it seems, had a real issue with Moshe Rabbeinu. He was envious of Moshe Rabbeinu's position as the leader of the Jewish people. But it would not be so, I guess, accepted, or it would not be welcomed so well to go and attack Moshe Rabbeinu at first. So he first went and attacked the fact that Moshe Rabbeinu gave the leadership of the tribe to their younger cousin El Tzafan ben Uziel. And what I mean by that is that Korach was Moshe's younger cousin. Korach was the son of Yitzhar, who was the younger brother of Amram. Amram was Moses' father. However, their youngest cousin, the youngest brother of Amram was the fourth son. Uziel, his name was, had a son named El Tzafan. And El Tzafan was chosen to be the tribal leader for the family of Kehat, which is one of the three families of the Levi'im. And therefore, Korach was so slighted. He's like, not only did my cousin show favoritism and nepotism towards his brother by giving his brother to be the priest and the Kohen Gadol, but then he went and he took our youngest cousin, El Tzafan, to be the leader for our family. He couldn't have it anymore. And he went full out against Moshe Rabbeinu. That he's lying to us, that he's making up laws when it comes to mezuzah, when it comes to tzitzit, and he was only starting with that. And he went full out against Moshe Rabbeinu. What did Moshe Rabbeinu do at the onset of this machloket? The word machloket means dispute in Hebrew. At the onset of this machloket, Moshe Rabbeinu does something. And this is a lifelong lesson. I'm going to show it to you on your screen. This is Numbers Bamidbar, chapter 16, verse 25. It says as follows: Vayakum Moshe, vayelech el Datan va'aviram, vayelechu acharav ziknei Israel. Moses arose and went to Datan and Aviram, and the elders of Israel followed him. So before I explain this verse, I want to remind everyone, Korach, he was the leader of this rebellion against Moshe Rabbeinu. But he grouped up with another 3 men as the leaders, and then there was another 250 men. The 3 men other than Korach are Datan and Aviram, which were the infamous troublemakers that we have seen since the book of Exodus already. Then we had this other fellow named On ben Pelet. We've spoken about him in the past. We're not going to speak about him tonight. There's a lot to speak about, but to make a long story short, On was one of the ringleaders with Korach in this rebellion, and as such, they formed a group of 254 men. All of these people thought to themselves, how could it be, again, Korach must have been a very charismatic leader and speaker. How could it be that Moses is hogging up all of the good positions for him, his brother, his younger cousin? Why not Korach? Now, Korach himself was a wealthy man. Korach himself was a very smart man. He was a powerful man. Nevertheless, he could not have it. With everything that he had, he could not have it that he did not have a formal position in his family. So what did Moses do? We just read that Moses got up and he went to speak to Datan and Aviram, meaning after he tried to appease Korach and he wasn't able to, he then went for the next two, Datan and Aviram. Rashi tells us, and this is based on the Talmud, Masechet Sanhedrin, page 110a, that Moses got up to go make peace. The Talmud says that even if you did not start a dispute, we have an obligation to get up and to go make peace with the other, to try to stop anything from blowing up. Moshe Rabbeinu, who obviously did not start any dispute in this case at all. It was claims that were made against him. He saw that he couldn't go and appease the ringleader. Nevertheless, you know what he did? He got up and he went to the next tier. He tried. They shut him down. It's okay. But Moses tried. He took the step forward. The Talmud continues and says that anybody who engages in the transgression of causing dispute goes and passes over the law. It's a lotase. It's a biblical prohibition to not engage in a dispute. We see this in this week's Torah portion. Take a look at this. Towards the end of the verse, it says, "V'lo yeh keKorach v'cha'adato," and one is not to be like Korach and his company, kasher diber Hashem biad Moshe lo, as the Lord spoke regarding him through the hands of Moses. So the Talmud says anybody who engages in dispute is going and transgressing the very, very concept of engaging in dispute based on the following verse, which we just read from, which is in Bamidbar, chapter 17, verse 5. So now the Zera Shimshon asks an amazing question. He says, why did the Torah give an example of Korach while warning for this sin? It's not like when Hashem tells us, oh, you should not disgrace, you should not desecrate the Shabbat, just like was done by so-and-so. Let's say in last week's, 2 weeks ago, parasha, by the, 2 weeks ago, by the Mikoshesh Etzim, by the guy who was gathering wood. The Torah doesn't say, do not desecrate the Shabbat as the person who gathered the wood did. The Torah does not tell us, do not murder just as Cain did to Hevel. It doesn't normally give examples, frankly, ever give an example, except by when it comes to the prohibition of engaging in dispute. The Zera Shimshon wants to know why. It's a nice question, right? It's a fascinating question. So the Zera Shimshon gives an answer. The Zera Shimshon gives an answer based on this is his own idea. He says that the example the Talmud is giving, or really the Torah is giving, that is being made out of Korach, was done deliberately. It was done so that you would never think, oh, only if someone wronged you do you need to get up and go make peace. You would still think that if you have no involvement in this dispute at all, that you have no responsibility to move forward and try to make peace. Korach felt, explains the Zera Shimshon, completely slighted by Moshe Rabbeinu. And as we know from the end of the story, Korach was 100%, he was completely at fault. Nevertheless, Moshe Rabbeinu did not start the conflict. So the lesson is that even if you think you are 100% right, you're not supposed to involve yourself or initiate any type of conflict. All the more so if Someone else is starting it against you and you have nothing to do with it. The Zera Shimshon says, even if you were offended, don't attack. We see this by Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu was offended in so many different ways. He was insulted. He was humiliated. You know why the Zera Shimshon says we're never supposed to attack back? Because every single Jew has a piece of the Shekhinah in them, has a piece of Hashem in them. And by striking back at that Jew who hurt you, in essence, you're disrespecting Hashem. Now, that's a hard concept. The concept of understanding that your adversary has in them a piece of Hashem. And that's hard. That's hard for you to look at your enemy, at your competition, at the person who slighted you, and look at them and them, wow, that is a piece of Hashem. The Zera Shimshon explains that by taking revenge, in essence, you are denying that everything that happens to you is from Hashem. Because we've spoken about this before, that the person that's doing that to you is only a messenger from Hashem. And everyone gets what they deserve. So when we attack that person, it's futile. There's no point. This was true by Korach more than ever. Korach couldn't accept who was nominated as the high priest or as the Nasi for his tribe, for his family, the leader of his tribe. Korach saw the Shekhinah in the Mishkan, and he still couldn't back down. The Zera Shimshon says because he was angry. He was so angry. And anger makes a person do the unthinkable. So Korach was used as an example, explains the Zera Shimshon, because even in such a case, we have no right to involve ourselves in conflict. Even in a case where Moshe was being personally attacked, he had all the right to retaliate. We still don't, because that person has a piece of the Shekhinah, a piece of God in them. So even if one does not initiate this conflict at all, it is nevertheless the responsible thing to try and make peace, since a dispute inherently shows disrespect towards the Shekhinah, towards Hashem. And it also shows a lack of trust in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I guess the lesson we can learn from this is the importance, obviously, of not involving or initiating any dispute, staying far away from that. And this is true when it comes to something as close as a husband and wife. There's so many reasons, so many opportunities to make something from nothing and make an issue out of a tissue or blow it up. We all know that. But turning our heads, being forgiving, not initiating conflict, so important with our spouse, with our children, with our parents, with our friends, with our siblings, with our coworkers. Once you start learning about different personalities, different personality types, and what people are looking for, if you just go out and you respect them and you honor them, you avoid so much of the conflict. And when it comes to criticizing is the number one relationship killer. There's no good criticism like no criticism. Meaning, there's never a time where criticism is warranted. And if it is done so delicately. It has to be done alone. It has to be done with care, with affection, with the intention that the other understands you're just trying to help them. As Dale Carnegie says, it has to be like what's the word he uses? A criticism with a compliment sandwich. He says, you first have to start with complimenting someone and then saying, but I would say you can do this a little better this way. And then you go back and you compliment them. That is the way to do it. But nevertheless, criticism in general is a relationship killer. Criticism is the seed for a lot of conflict. And it's always better to stay silent. It's always better to give a good word, positive encouragement. That is really, really the best thing. But we see this from this week's parasha, that going and trying to make peace. This is the chidush. I want to go back to where we started. The novelty is that Moshe Rabbeinu himself went out to try to make peace. The king, the leader, he went to the rebellion. He didn't just go. He didn't just say, "I'll wait till they come to me." Most disputes are, "Oh, I'll wait when they come to me. I'm not saying anything until they come to me," and vice versa. No, you go and you take the first step. That's the right thing. That's what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants from you. Whether they'll accept or not, look, they even turned Moshe Rabbeinu down. So next time you go and you try to initiate peace and you say, "Oh, how can they turn me down?" You have good company. Moshe Rabbeinu was turned down also. That's okay. But never be the one to initiate the conflict. Always try to go and do the right thing.